What's up, everybody? So I'm gonna make two videos tonight or today. Um, First one's gonna be this video, just talking about some things, and the next video is gonna be another room world video because there's some things that are kind of going on in in that colony that I'd like to have a chance to deal with. Uh, so as far as this video is concerned, um, I think there's some kind of interesting things worth talking about. So as we all know, we're beginning to kind of embark upon tax time again. And yesterday, boy, I got to tell you, it was a big day for me. wasn't It wasn't necessarily all bad, but I had a few things that I don't know, man. I think it's kind of both funny and uh well, let me just kind of jump in. So around 10 o'clock, I had scheduled to get my taxes done at a local small mom and pop type of shop here in the town that I live in. And I waited for a while to get this done because I wanted to make sure that I had everything that I needed to have the taxes done the way that I wanted them to be done. Like, so with me, I had a few different forms that I had to do this year. The the uh, the health insurance, some stuff related to my grandmother's inheritance that I had to take care of, and a few other things here and there. Nothing major, nothing out of the ordinary. Well, I came to find out that after I got my taxes done, I had to pay 145 to the state, and I was receiving about somewhere around $700 less from the Fed. And usually, whenever that kind of stuff happens, it's usually a combination of the fact that you haven't adjusted your state withholding to correspond to whatever COLA increases you've enjoyed, combined with the fact that you're also probably taking more home each month or each week, depending on how your employer pays you. So I didn't really think much of it. It was a little bit of a psychological type of thing, because every single time I go to get my taxes done, I always hope to at least get around $2,000 back. And the reason I'm like that is because for the past few years, it's always just kind of been architected like that with my expenses. I don't know anything about taxes, man. And I pay these people so that I don't have to worry about that kind of stuff, man. There's just too many fucking moving parts with taxes. And so, like I said, I deal with the stuff as it comes along. And unfortunately for me, this year I had to pay 145 and I got a little less back from the Fed. But I still wound up on top because I still got some money back. Not that it's like not really that it's money that I'm gaining, because we're talking about taxes, or tax returns, so it's like money that you would have normally would have been yours anyway. And it's hard to remember that when you're in the midst of seeing how the previous couple years you were at this amount, and then now at this year you're down here. The simple minds of life like myself. I mean, we don't know the ins and outs of this sort of shit, man. We just give the guy our tax stuff, and we're like, all right, have at it, and then we see a final amount, and we're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? It's kind of funny, but anyway. So anyway, I was working on that yesterday, and I got that done, and as I was walking out to the parking lot of this place, I put the key in the ignition and I started up, and the fucking truck, man, it doesn't turn over. It starts cranking and cranking and cranking, but doesn't turn over. And I've been through this a few times with my stupid truck, man. And every single time I've wondered, oh my God, is it something to do with the engine that I put in a few years ago? Because for anybody that's just now tuning into my channel, listening to this ramble, uh, you need to understand that a few years ago I did an engine swap with a shop in my local town here, and the engine that I put in was a remanufactured engine from Jasper Transmission and Engines. And ever since day one, there's just been things that have been going on with the engine that didn't really ever make much sense. Even the very first day that I went to pick up the truck after the engine was swapped, I remember how it started. Man, it started up really rough. It made a bunch of weird sounds and shit that just made you feel like, okay, what the fuck is going on here? And after it got past that, it started up perfectly fine. And the engine itself, it runs like a little sewing machine. But through the years of having done the engine swap, there's been a few things that have been programmatic in or repetitious in its nuance now. So one thing is the fact that whenever I first bought it, it made a lot of weird sounds that I didn't understand during the startup, and like a rattling sound. And I came to find out that it was mostly because of the belt tensioner. Because my make and model, it has a belt, like kind of like not really a timing belt, because my make and model of engine, it has a timing chain, not a belt, a chain. But there's an external belt that loops through all of the things, all of the components and the crankshaft and the alternator and the oil pump, and there's just a bunch of stuff that the external belt wraps around so that it does all of the stuff that it needs to do. uh, but the tensioner that keeps tension on that belt, that was swapped over from the old engine. So whenever you would go to start the engine up, sometimes it would make additional rattling sounds and stuff because of its age and wear. And to make a long story short out of this, it just needed to be replaced. I mean, the armature on the tensioner, it became too loose, and so whenever you would sometimes start it up, it would rattle a little bit before it got kind of warmed up and stuff, and that noise began to kind of it began to kind of shave against or brush up against the engine block, or at least the surface that was directly against the armature. And that was realized by a mechanic here in one of my towns that I usually take my stuff to, because he got in there, started digging around, because I had enough at some point, and I was like, hey man, his name's Randy, and I was like, Randy, can you please look at this, man, because this fucking shit's driving me nuts. Because at that time, this was after the engine swap, and I thought to myself, well, okay, I must have been given a fucking lemon or something, because this thing just is not, it's not making normal noises, man. it's kind of wigging me out. So he gets in there, starts looking around, and he realized that the belt tensioner, just simply needed to be replaced. He saw wear marks and rub marks and stuff like that, so he replaced that, and that took care of that problem. So then after that, one other thing that sometimes happens is that there are the occasional really rough starts during cold weather or first time of the day startups. And sometimes what happens is I'll turn the key, I'll start the thing up if it's either the first time of the day or during really cold weather, and the RPM arm or needle, it'll go up to about, like, maybe, I don't know, 1.5 to 2,000 RPMs or whatever, like it normally does, because all of our cars, whenever you first start them up, it'll rev up to a little bit, and then it'll kind of slowly calm down to a to a running rate, or RPM, whatever. So with my truck, sometimes what will happen is that it'll do that normal thing. It'll slowly come down, and then after a few seconds, it'll go, and then it'll act like almost as if it's coming through with or going through some sort of weird momentary stall effect, like it wants to drop down, like, oh, almost as if something internally with either a belt or a chain or some shit with pressure, it like suddenly stalls out, like it's getting ready to try to just shut off sporadically. And it would do that for all sorts of first day startups. Most of the time it wouldn't do that during warm weather, but if the truck had been sitting for a certain number of either hours or days, or if it was really cold outside, like kind of like what it is today at like 25 degrees or less Fahrenheit, I mean, it would do this thing where it acts like it's stalling out during the first startup. Well, it did that not long ago, and I had had enough. And I was thinking to myself, well, usually whenever it does that, sometimes what you'll see is the radio head unit on my radio, it'll go out. The light on it and stuff, it'll just go out. The radio can still play, but the head unit, because I have my truck's old. It's a 2006 Chevy Colorado, and it's got an old CD player type of thing, one of the old style types where you could take the little head unit off. Still, like the CD player and the radio unit, the main unit will still be in the dash or whatever, but the little head unit can come off. I don't know why they were like this. I think some of it had to do with anti-theft. But long story short, whenever it would go through these hard starts, that head unit would just kind of go off as if it's losing power. Well, after a bunch of research and trying to figure out what the hell was going on, one thing that I realized that indicated some sort of power issue, like an electrical or maybe a battery issue. And through the years, I tried to kind of deal with some of this in the sense that, okay, if I see that, that tells me that my battery was getting low or getting bad or just simply needed to be replaced. And I would always replace it with the same type of battery that I'd have at that time, which is kind of like a shitty, I don't know, 665 cold crank amp rated type of battery, and it was one of those liquid batteries. Well, this past year, or should I say a few months ago, the truck indicated another kind of situation that made me convinced that it was time to change the battery again. But up to that point, I had done a little more research, and I had also listened to a friend of mine who's kind of like not really a gearhead, but he's kind of like a farmer type of guy, and he suggested one time, a long time ago, maybe swapping out my battery with a different battery that had a higher CCA rating, cold crank amp rating. And so I did some research, and I ended up working with Chat GPT about some of this stuff, and I came up with a battery type that I could basically use that was closer to 700 and something cold crank amps. I put that sucker in, and the startups have been like night and day. I mean, it has been so much better. There have literally only been 2 times when I would go out there during one of the coldest days of the year, start her up, and she would momentarily do a little bit of a dip. And as soon as she did that one little dip, everything began to kind of even out. And usually I've trained myself to where whenever it does that kind of crap, I step on the gas a little bit, not floor it or anything crazy, but just step on it just enough to where it puts a little more gas towards the I guess the ignition sequence there that happens whenever you first start the truck up. But with that new battery, it's rated closer towards 7 something. I think it's like 700, maybe 700 to 720 something, maybe cold crank amps. And it's an AGM. Okay, I don't know what the acronym stands for, but it's an AGM. It's basically like a dry battery, I think. And I guess AGMs handle cold weather better. And ever since I put that battery in, not only have the cold starts been like night and day, but it's also created this situation where the head unit on my radio never goes out anymore. So I mean, it really is cool, man, because you're listening to somebody here who's been through the gamut with this little stupid truck, man, trying to understand what's going on since this new engine swap, and to see the startups this much improved. I mean, it's like a breath of fresh air. So that's another thing that's been going on that I've managed to kind of successfully navigate, or at least improve. And then finally, like I said, back to the stuff that's been going on lately. Yesterday, I was doing my taxes. I was kind of in the doldrums about not getting as much money back. And again, whenever you think about taxes and you start understanding how taxes work, you realize that you're not really losing out on anything. It's just shit fluctuates whenever it comes to taxes. But whenever I was walking out to the parking lot, I go in to start my truck. And the fucker doesn't turn over, man. It cranks, it cranks, it cranks, but it just doesn't turn over. And I'm sitting there. I've been through this about 4 or 5 times now with this truck, and every single time it's happened, I would initially think that it's got something to do with either this engine that I just put in, or possibly an old fuel pump that I put in before the engine swap. Because whenever your engine doesn't start, whenever you start it up, or it doesn't turn over whenever you start it up, so most of the time that's usually indicative of something like, your fuel system, sometimes maybe some kind of vacuum leak that would wind up causing an air to fuel ratio mismatch or mismix, whatever. But this specific time, I was able to maintain some level of calm uh demeanor, because again, I've been through this a few times, and I was a little more calm about it, because I knew that from other experiences that every single time it does this, it'll eventually start. You just gotta wait a few minutes. And as I was sitting there trying to crank this fucker, I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, every single time this happens, it eventually starts. Is there a pattern in that? And it was during that moment of clarity that I began to realize that my dash in the you got the RPM and the miles per hour gauge cluster and stuff right there in that dash. I saw this little lock icon blinking, and that was the fucking giveaway, man. That was the giveaway, because I realized then that after I got my stupid little my operator's manual, or whatever you call that thing, I looked up the icon, and it was the fucking pass lock. It was the stupid pass lock. This stupid thing. It's like a security mechanism that the make and model that I have was incorporated with, that basically says if somebody's trying to tinker around with your ignition, activate this type of security measure that locks the ignition cylinder up for about 10 minutes. And I think it was kind of like the initial segue into more advanced security systems at the time, because you got to remember, man, I've got a 2006, so it's a work truck. It's bare bones. It doesn't have any kind of security mechanisms that are very advanced. It doesn't even have any type of alarm or anything. It's just this stupid little pass lock thing that I think gets instigated if it senses that your ignition cylinder is being fiddled with, as if it was the kind of scenario where somebody was trying to basically steal your truck. So, long story short, after about 10 minutes, cleared right up, started right up, no problem at all, no codes, no check engine light. Everything's just hunky-dory. Just like the other times that I've had whenever it did that. And again, whenever I looked in my manual, I saw that the pass lock happens whenever, if your engine isn't starting or turning over, and you see that little lock icon that's blinking as you're sitting there trying to turn the thing over, that means that the pass lock is happening. And I think it's because my key is a little worn down, and I know that because there's multiple times when I would put it in my door lock, try to unlock it, and it would kind of like grab on things inside of the door lock. And so what I'm going to try to do from here on out is try a backup key that I have that's a little more sharper in its little edges and stuff. I'm going to try to ride with that for a few days or weeks and see if anything weird happens, and if everything works okay. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and say screw it and make a copy of that key anyway, because having an extra key laying around isn't going to hurt me. But I'm going to go ahead and use this extra key and see how long it takes for me to replicate that non-start kind of scenario. And if it never happens again, then I'm going to know for a fact that it was that bad key. If it does happen again, then I'm going to go ahead and get my starter, what do they call it? Starter cylinder replaced inside of my, steering wheel or whatever. Get that replaced and see if that helps. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is because it was really, really a breath of fresh air, because I had been dealing with this weird, sporadic, no-start scenario for years. And I never understood why it was happening as often as it, or whenever it would happen, why it was happening. And I was always jumping to certain kinds of conclusions, like it was either the new fuel pump that was replaced, or, possibly something to do with my new engine. but it's not. It's that Evan Paslock. I never had the diligence during my emotional, my overwhelming state of emotional throughput at the time of these things happening, where I didn't have the diligence to look there at that dashboard and just see that stupid little blinking icon. And I mean, also too, it's not as if all of us always read our stupid user manuals as soon as we get our vehicles. Or at least I know I don't, man. And I should. I realize that. I realize how stupid I am for not doing that. But the long and short is that I finally, I think, figured out what's been going on whenever my truck just doesn't want to turn over. But as if that wasn't enough, the tax stuff and the truck thing going on. I'm sitting at home, okay? So by this point I'm at home. It's later in the evening, everything's hunky dory for the most part, things are beginning to kind of calm down. And I'm trying to begin to clean around the house and do some sweeping and basic stuff like that. And by the way, don't pay any attention to all that mess, I'm working on it, okay? It's just taking some time. But yesterday, whenever I was messing around with this, and oh, by the way, I didn't realize I had my little my small thing down there on. Still getting used to this whole production stuff. Yesterday, whenever I was doing some stuff around the house, I realized that I hadn't checked the mail. So I go outside, go get my mail, and I see this weird mail or this weird letter from some erroneous company that I've never interacted with before in my mailbox. I'm like, okay, so what the hell is this? So I get inside, open up the thing, and it's a fucking letter about some form of data breach that happened by some goddamn company down in Texas that resulted in using a third party that allowed some sort of data breach with people's fucking SSNs and medical information. And unfortunately for me, it turned out to be that I was one of those motherfuckers. And I guess long story short, it's because they handle a lot of the medical data that other employers throughout the country seem to handle too. So mark my words, man. If you hold on a second, I'll get the letter here. I tried to do some research on this to figure out if it was legit, and it's legit. It's no joke. It's a letter by a company named Conduent, okay? And I guess this place's headquarters, I guess, is down in Georgia. Suwanee, Georgia. The Suwanee is spelled Suwanee, Georgia. And long story short, it basically goes through, giving the stereotypical C-suite apologies to their customers. And it says, what happened? Okay, so on January 13th of 2025, we discovered that we were the victim of a cyber incident that impacted a limited portion of our network. We immediately secured our networks and initiated an investigation with the assistance of third-party forensic experts. Our investigation determined that an unauthorized third party had access to our environment from October 21st of 2024 to January 13th of 2025. Okay, so, and it goes on to say, and obtain small files associated with your current or former health plan. Long story short, I guess some asshole from Uzbekistan or wherever the hell it is gained access to these people's network, downloaded some fucking files that had my social security number, date of birth, all sorts of fucking wonderful shit that you want someone over there in, the Moog or whatever, Mogadishu to have. And, it was a wonderful thing to come home to after you've dealt with tax issues and truck issues. But long story short, what I did is I went ahead and locked my shit down with those three main agencies, the Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, which is the stereotypical thing that you're always advised to do whenever shit like this goes down. Now, honestly, I can't say if this is even legit. I'm pretty sure it is, because I looked it up online, and it looks like that guy down there in Texas, the main AG, is in the process of investigating it. I guess he's instigated some sort of actual formal investigation into this, and they're saying that this could be one of the biggest data breaches in American history. So if you get one of these letters, I can't advise you. Who knows what the fuck you should really do, but I do know this. I do know that whenever you lock your credit files, there's not really anything there that you can not benefit from, and it's not going to hurt you. The worst thing that it can do is cause a situation where if you have to apply for like a loan or something like that or financing, you just have to make sure that you unlock the files again before you apply for the loan. That's really the only downfall of it. Otherwise, it makes it much, much, much more harder, if not impossible, to do things like create loans in your names and other kinds of identity theft bullshit. But besides that, though, you just need to make sure to keep an eye on your bank account and all this other kind of crap. And like I said, I mean, this happened back, I guess this, according to this letter at least, this happened back in October, I guess, 21st of 2024. So here we are now, 2026. I mean, I check my fucking bank account like it's second nature. Sometimes I'll do it like a couple times a day. And not because I'm paranoid, but because I just like to look at my money to make sure that there's not some sort of weird shit going on and that I have as much money as I want to believe I have. It kind of makes me just kind of like psychologically stable, I guess. Hold on a second, later. So anyway, yeah, I got that letter yesterday, and initially I began to kind of panic. And again, I went to ChatGPT and I was like, "Hey, ChatGPT, here's the letter that I got, blah 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 blah." And to ChatGPT's credit, man, it kind of talked me off the cliff and helped me kind of calm down about things, to think rationally about stuff, and to realize that there's ways to kind of deal with this. And it also assigned it helped me look at things proportionally, because the sad fact of the matter is that all of us probably have all of our shit floating around out there in the dark web or someplace. There's not really anything that we can do about it until shit finally fucking changes with this stuff, And you're sitting here listening to somebody that works in this shit for a living. At least once a month, my team usually gets involved in at least something that's related to security like this. It may not always be in the sense of some sort of data breach, but there's always some asshole out there trying to cause some shit where they're wanting some sort of access to stuff that they're not supposed to have, or possibly they need their passwords reset because they notice some sort of weird activity on a thing. And guys like me who are involved in some of the stuff that we get involved with at my employer, we always get involved in this stuff, and we realize how easy it is for this kind of shit to happen. And I'm telling you right now, as someone who's been in the field now for about 20 years, I'm telling you that this shit is never going to get better until some assholes in some government building somewhere finds a way to institute some actual full-fledged silver bullet mandates that prevent this stuff. And my belief is that it's never going to change until technology changes, because I think I've always had this idea that the internet was allowed to be used way before it should have ever been allowed to be used. I think we need to, in other words, revisit how we're doing the internet, because whatever it is that's going on out there in the world, it's just not fucking working. Software in general is never secure, and that's the reason that you always constantly see all of these different versions of software constantly needing all of these different updates, because stuff just is never fucking secure. And the reason it's never secure is because the technology itself isn't secure. And it just drives me nuts, man. It drives me nuts, because every year, every month, every week, it seems as if there's some new breach that's happening that some idiot out there isn't doing anything about. So anyway, that happened. So I had my tax stuff happen, my truck stuff happen, and then this fucking data breach thing happened. And I locked all my shit down. I did the whole thing where you're supposed to lock down the credit files and stuff. So I feel like I've done everything in my power as a United States constituent to do what you're supposed to do in these kinds of situations. But it's been one hell of a fucking weekend, man. And kind of changing the temperament of this video, one thing that also happened too is that I won the Powerball. Nothing major, but I picked numbers that allowed me to win on every row that I have, because usually whenever I buy these Powerball tickets, I buy about $10 worth, which means that you've got about 5 rows, because each row I guess has, it costs about $2 to buy. And for the life of me, every row won out. I won about maybe $23. so so I managed to kind of accrue some, or I managed to kind of get my money back from the past 2 tickets, I guess. But 23 bucks. I don't know. What do you do, man? Just, oh God. With everything going on in the world, man, I'll take the wins wherever I can get them, I guess. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about that real quick. Oh, and by the way, anybody who happens to see this, I'm hoping that you'll wind up watching with me the president's State of the Union that's happening this Tuesday. I've got a thing out there that I'm going to wind up. I've I labeled it the State of the Union Address Watch Party. I know that nobody's probably going to wind up watching that with me, and that's completely fine. I'm not like, don't feel sorry for me or anything like that. It's all good, man. If I even have to just watch the fucking thing by myself, I'm completely okay with that. But I figured it'd be kind of cool to have a little bit of a stream going on that night, because I really do think that there's going to be some fireworks that happen whenever this State of the Union happens. With everything that's been going on, from all the stuff that Trump's been doing overseas to all of the ICE crap and other things, I just feel like we're liable to see another situation like the last State of the Union, where he had to I think who is it, Jim something, that Jim guy, the chairperson, I think, of the GOP. I can't remember what his name is, but he had to request the enforcement person. I don't know what you call him, man. The enforcement person. He had to have the enforcement person escort that black guy out of the chambers, because he was making some sort of big scene during the State of the Union. And that's the first time I have ever seen something like that happen. And so I would expect something somewhat similar to happen again this Tuesday night. And again, I've got the thing out there on my channel. It's scheduled for Tuesday at, let me see if I can bring it up here. Tuesday at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. I'm sorry, 8 p.m. February 24th at 8 p.m. And again, I've labeled it the State of the Union Watch Party. So I don't know, man. If you want to be involved in that, I think it'll be kind of fun to watch. What I'm going to try to do is have like my little thing here. Let me see here. Not that. Let me see here. Something like this, and then out here will be the actual stream that I'm going to wind up streaming from YouTube. So I think it'll be kind of fun to watch, man. God only knows what's going to be said or what's going to happen. I tell you though, man, every day it's like a damn new circus event or something. It's like every day there's something weird going on. And fuck, man, just last night, I guess there was some shooter down there at Mar-a-Lago that was walking on the fucking property with a shotgun. It's like, what the fuck are you thinking is going to happen out of that? It's like, these people are nuts, man. So anyway, again, February 24th or this Tuesday at 8 p.m. I hope to see you on my channel, chat and stuff, watching it with me. It'll be fun. If not, no big deal. But I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. And here in a bit, I'm going to upload my my next video on RimWorld, the colony that I'm working on. Because we have a caravan that's getting ready to head down to the Key Caspis colony. And we'll see what happens out of that. So anyway, I hope you guys are okay. I hope you're all staying warm. I know that there's a little bit of a cold cell that's kind of moving across the country right now. Mostly towards the northeast, I think. Here in Indiana, it's not really too bad, but it's pretty cold outside. We wound up with a little bit of a dusting of snow, and right now I think it's at around like maybe 24 degrees outside. I didn't even get out today. I didn't even get out to cash in my Powerball proceeds, so I'm hoping to do that tomorrow. But anyway, we'll end this video now, and I'll upload my RimWorld video here soon, probably about an hour and a half, something like that. So Hope you guys have a good day. Hope you guys have a good week, and I hope to see you on Tuesday night because there's going to be some fireworks, I'm sure. Have a good one.